All right. So we discussed earlier that the portal for Azure would be portal.azure.com, right? Here you have to log in. You can log in with your Vdash IDs, but you don't have a subscription there, so it won't work basically. Okay. So I'm going to log in with my ID, and I'm going to show how the Azure portal looks like. Okay. So this is what Azure portal looks like, right? This is called the home screen, and in the home screen you can see various things that you can create, right? You can create a virtual machine, an app service, a storage account, SQL database, whatever you like, right? These are like the most commonly created items. Few of the most commonly created items. Other than that, we call this one the blade, 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 right? Here we can see again all the favorite options, not our favorite, it can be our favorite, but favorite options that most of the people use all the time, right? Now, these things are secondary. The most important thing that we are going to see here and we are going to use here is called this, the search bar, right? So any kind of resource that I want to use in Azure portal, right? I don't need to know where it is, right? I don't need to know where the virtual machine is. Even if I know, that's good. If I know virtual machine is here, that's good. The thing is, if I want to actually create a virtual machine or study anything about the virtual machine, then it would be better that if I can search in the search bar, because this is an online portal, it keeps on changing with time, right? Maybe someday you open it and it doesn't look like this, right? So search bar will remain here. So if I want to see anything about the virtual machine, I'm going to do like this, type in virtual, and I see everything that starts with virtual here. Virtual machines, virtual networks, virtual clusters, a lot of things, right? So I'll go to virtual machines. What was virtual machines? Anybody remembers?
These are servers only. Virtual servers.
For now, we can think of a VM as a server, right? You had an on-prem server, VM is just another server that's in Azure, right? And the important thing is that you have to create the server, you have to build the server, and later on you have to manage it. The only thing that Microsoft is going to manage in this is the hardware beneath the server, or server as a virtual machine, right? Microsoft is not going to manage your softwares for you. Microsoft is not going to manage your operating system for you. They are not going to meddle into that. That is totally going to be your responsibility. Make sense? All right. So how to create this server? You go to virtual machines, just as you type it in the search bar, you go here and you see the option of add here, add virtual machine. Click on this. Now everybody knows what RAM is, what CPU is.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, we'll have a discussion on that as well. Okay. Anyway, so you see here, create a virtual machine wizard. This is where you create a server, right? This is my subscription. Subscription is that you're using Azure. What kind of subscription do you have? Do you have a credit card pay as you go model? Do you have an enterprise model? In my case, I have MSDN platform. This is a subscription that I have from Microsoft Send. Okay, so resource group. We'll get to this one later, but this is the name of the resource group. For instance, resource group is a logical boundary within which your virtual machine is going to be created, so that I can manage it easily, right? It's a management boundary. Okay, more on this later. Virtual machine name. What should I name a virtual machine? Let's call it server 1, for instance. Okay. Now region. Region is really important. What's region? Any idea? What's a region in Azure? Any idea?
Yeah, where you will store your data, right?
Where actually the virtual machine will be created, where actually this resource would be created. In Azure, we have multiple locations across the globe. We have multiple data centers in different countries. Are there some data centers in India as well? Of course, we have some data centers in India as well. We have some data centers in other countries. In Europe, we have data centers. Now, even in Africa, we have data center. In Middle East, we have data centers. In Australia, so we have a lot of data centers. We have a lot of regions. So let me show you how many regions do we have. Uh, Azure regions, and louder, क्या? 41, yeah, 55. आ गए हैं. So now this is the image I was looking for. View file. Okay, you guys can see this. Is it visible from the back? Okay. So the thing is that these are various data center locations. Now, by the way, let me clarify one thing. These are not data center locations per se. These are regions. Okay, I'll give you a difference between data center and region. But you can see right now, we have a region that's West India, Central India, South India, UAE Central, UAE North, South Africa North, South Africa West. Then you have a cluster in Europe. Then you have a cluster in America. Then you have a region. We have a region in South America, that's Brazil South. Okay. Then we have Korea. Which one? South or North? South Korea or North Korea? Where would the data center be? Why obviously? Why is that so obvious? Why would we have a data center in South Korea and not North? Because Kim Jong Un is there, right? So what's wrong with Kim Jong Un, man? He's not doing anything to a data center, or is he? Kind of, yes. That's one of the reasons. That could be one of the reasons, right? The thing is, just look at this image, right? You see, is it readable by the way from the back? It's readable, right? So look at this, and do you notice a pattern where these regions are? Do you notice a pattern in the countries where there are regions and where there are data centers? What's the pattern? Be louder. Where did you read this one? Yes. Okay. So the thing is, when you talk about a data center, most of that's a good observation that you see most of them are on the coast, but you can say near the coast, not really on the coast, right? So the thing is, most of them are on the coast, and why are they on the coast mostly? Is does that reason make sense? Does that reason make sense, or there could be another reason? Ex- So are you saying the underwater connections map? Oh, it's something like this. Let's try to Google this. Let's see if we see this. Connections, internet. So this is a really small image actually. हाँ एक minute, it would be visible. Okay. This is visible a little bit, right? This is not the whole world, but it gives you a rough idea that, okay, across the globe, most of the internet connections or internet connectivity of a country is it meets the country at the sea, right? So it makes more sense to have a data center near the seashore than in center of the country. There's a reason why there's no data center in Delhi, right? It's landlocked, right? So to bring an internet connection or to bring such a fiber connection that is so fast, right? It's basically terabits per second, right? To bring it to Delhi, it's going to be expensive, right? It's much better to terminate it where the connection is already there, right? So it's not literally that the data centers are at the sea, right? Pay attention for a second. It's not literally that they're at the sea. They're near the sea, right? They could be 100, 120, 130 kilometers apart, right? So that does not necessarily mean that it's for cooling of the data center, right? If we wanted cooling, we probably would have done it in the Himalayas. Yes. Beneath the seabeds as well, there are some data centers, but again, that's expensive stuff, right? But we can expect that kind of stuff from Microsoft, by the way. We can expect them to have that. But does that make sense? Does this map kind of make sense? There's one more pattern that you would see in the countries that have that regions are there in certain countries. Do you see another pattern? Yes. By the way, a country is either developing or developed. Yes. Uh-huh. Kind of, but and you can think of one more thing: political stability. Do you see a data center in Russia? Do you see a lot of data centers in China? Why do you see only one region in South America, and that too is in Brazil? South America, you guys have heard of, right? It's very politically, very politically quiet place, right? No, it's very unstable, right? So there's something going on in Venezuela. There's something going on in like different places in that. So the thing is, where there is political, there's there's no political unrest. That's what we are looking for. That's what Microsoft is looking for in this case, right? So what are they looking for? There's United States of America, much of Northern Europe, India is there. It's kind of politically stable, you can say that, right? So there's certain parts of Africa that are politically stable. That's in Southern Africa, including Mozambique, including South Africa itself, including Angola is kind of stable, right? There are a lot of countries. Australia is stable, New Zealand is stable, but there is no data center in New Zealand, by the way, right? Then South Korea is stable. It's not like North Korea. So political landscape is also one of the reasons, right? Otherwise, there is a lot of sea that we are not covering. There's a lot of sea that we are not covering. So political presence of the country is also there, right? So now these are the regions. You understand? These are the regions. They are not data centers. That makes sense. What's the difference between a region and a data center? One region may have multiple data centers. One region, you see a dot here, right? A dot here in West India, right? West India would not mean just one data center in West India. It means 2 to 5 data centers in a region. There are 2 to 5 data centers in a region, right? The number could vary from region to region, right? And the thing is, why are there multiple data centers in a region? Yeah, maybe something goes wrong with the data center as a whole. So that means the region would not go down. A data center in the region would go down. That the whole region would still keep on servicing the users. Make sense? Or does it make sense? Okay, that's cool. So the thing is that you want 2 to 3 data centers per region. So that's kind of a given, right? So one more thing, these data centers within a region, the data centers that are there, they are approximately 100 miles away. Approximately 100 miles. 100 miles कितना होता है? You guys know 100 miles. 160.8, as fast as Shoaib Akhtar was, basically. It touched 100, right? So the thing is that when you talk about these data centers, they are approximately 100 to 200 miles apart from each other, not more than that. Why not? Now, these data centers are constantly replicating data to each other, right? One data center is sending data to another data center so that if this goes down, this also has the data. So, one data center goes down, the other one has the data. If I increase the distance more than these 200 miles, then there would be lag in the data, right? There would be some sort of latency because there's always an issue with the speed, right? So the thing is, there will be a time lag between the data when it's written here and data when it's written in the second data center. So I don't want that kind of a time lag. I want both the data centers to have the same state and same point in time, so that if one data center goes down by any chance, we still have the data and we still have the other data center that can come up in a few seconds. Is that making sense? Okay. So that's why I have 2 to 3 data centers and they are very close to each other. Now, for us, 100 miles might not be very close, but as far as the world geography is concerned, it's not too much. Okay, make sense? Yes. Coming back to create a virtual machine wizard, right? So you come here, you see the virtual machine name, any name that you like. East US, I'm going to select East US, but for most people, they should select the region that they are closest to. Why? Because obviously if your virtual machine is created closer to you, that means the access to that particular resource, not even just a virtual machine, access to that particular resource will be quicker, right? There would be less latency, but I'm creating it in East US just because of the kind of subscription I have. I'll explain it to you later what I mean by that. But anyway, availability options. Any idea what that means? Availability options mean that rather than having just one virtual machine in one data center somewhere, right? What happens if this virtual machine goes down? Then we'll have some trouble, right? If this virtual machine goes down, then we'll lose our data. We don't want this virtual machine to go down. We want to increase its availability. How to increase its availability? Availability is basically uptime, right? So how to increase its availability? I can increase its availability by just creating another machine that has the exact same configuration and that has the exact same data. Doesn't it make sense? Right? I should create a copy of the virtual machine in the same data center. Are you guys following or not following? Who's not following? Not following. Okay. So, how can I ensure that my phone is always online? How can I ensure that I'm always available on call if somebody is trying to call me? Get a more expensive phone. Keep it switched on, but maybe something goes wrong with the phone. Then what will I do to ensure the availability? Ensure my availability on the phone. Does the question make sense? I want to enhance my availability on the call, right? So the thing is, one solution would be to get two phones. So if you can't reach me on one phone, probably can call on the second one, on the third one, on the fourth one, like that. Maybe I'll be available on one of those. Same thing applies to the virtual machine. If there's one virtual machine and by any chance it goes down, I'm losing my data, I'm losing my uptime. My customers are facing downtime. I don't want that. I want business continuity at all times. Does that term ring a bell? Right. So I want business continuity at all times. So if I want, but still you would need a second phone to do that, right? To divert a call to. If I have one phone, where would I divert the call to? Myself. No. The thing is, I still need two phones in that case. But the thing is, coming back to the example, I want business continuity, so I don't want my virtual machine to go down, and I can't stop a hardware from failing sometimes. So, in order to prevent the outage, in order to prevent the downtime, I want two machines to be working simultaneously so that if one goes down, the other one is always there, right? So inside one data center, maybe I'll go for two copies, three copies, four copies, but that's something that we discuss in later terms. But the thing is, availability options is to ensure that whether I want the availability or not, whether I want to have a single phone or two phones or five phones, right? That makes sense? Okay. Now, image. What would the image mean in this case? Image means the operating system I want to put on the virtual machine. Operating system could be Windows, Linux, CentOS. There are many examples, right? Windows Server 2016, 2019, Windows 10, Windows 8.1, so many examples. Okay. Now, end of support operating systems are not available here for obvious reasons, right? Microsoft would not recommend you to use end of support items, right? So you can see here, Windows 10 Pro, I should probably create Windows Server 2019 would work, right? You guys have not seen 2019, right? You have not seen any server operating system, right? It kind of looks like your regular Windows operating system, so it's not a big deal. Anyway, we'll be seeing that. So Windows Server 2019 data center. And now this one is important. This is size. What would size mean? Size does not mean the actual hard disk size. I don't mean that. I mean CPU and the RAM. The configuration of the virtual machine, right? What's CPU? CPU. Thanks for the Okay, thanks for the central processing unit. What what does it mean? What is CPU? What does it do? Computing power. Okay, it processes everything. It processes the input and produces an output, right? It you give it the data, it gives you the information, something like that. Something like that. That's what it does. So, in a nutshell, there is a device called CPU that we also call as compute power. That means central processing unit. And what it does is it processes like its name suggests. It processes, it computes the data, it converts like basic mathematical questions into tangible answers that we can actually use. Then there is something called as RAM. What is RAM? Thank you.
storage device which is used for actually taking the data,
Hmm.
taking the working of the system just in order to work upon it. Like processor requires some amount of memory in order to work upon something. So RAM is basically that area which has been provided by the CPU in order to work
Is
upon
it
it.
making sense? What he's saying?
Like yeah, like in, when
Yes.
you buy a new laptop,
Uh-huh.
you see some space is already occupied. So that comes under the like RAM.
What space are you talking about?
Like the space on the hard disk is already occupied.
Oh no, don't confuse it with hard disk at all, right? That's why I was not very happy with the use of term storage here, right? It's not. It's not. There's a difference between storage and memory, right? Storage means that it's optimized for storing data for infinite amount of time, right? How is your memory? It's good. It's bad. I have a really bad memory, right? I'll try to remember something and I'll forget it in a couple of days. That means my memory is kind of temporary. It's very transient. Okay. So when I'm talking about RAM, it's keeping the data there. It is kind of storing it, but it's storing it for a very finite amount of time. If I'm getting technical, as soon as I switch off the computer, there will be no data on the RAM. As long as there is power, there would be data. It does not happen with the hard disk, right? Hard disk will store the data regardless of whether the computer is on, off for 2 days or for 100 years. Storage is going to keep that. Memory is not going to keep that. Memory is keeping that temporarily. Okay, why is memory keeping that temporarily? Now, I will be explaining you CPU, RAM, and storage later on, right? But to give you a basic idea, storage is very slow, right? CPU's processing is very fast. We need a place which can match the speed of the CPU. So rather than CPU taking all the data directly from storage and waiting to fetch the data because the storage is really slow, as I said, right? So we keep some data on the RAM, and RAM can feed the data to the CPU really quickly because speed of the RAM, read write speed of RAM and read write speed of CPU are very comparable, are almost equal to each other in ideal scenarios, right? So there is no waiting for the CPU, right? So RAM feeds the data to the CPU, and because RAM is really small, so we can't just keep on filling it with information. We have to delete that information. That's why RAM is temporary storage, like you said. But I wouldn't use the term storage. That's why we call RAM as volatile memory. Makes sense?
Yes.
Volatile memory. Volatile means temporary. Volatile means temporary, right? Anyway, so size would be that how much processing I need and how much RAM do I have, right? So I'll click on change size here. Let's see how it goes. And there are different sizes. Can you guys see on the screen? There are different sizes. There are different RAM models. There are different number of vCPUs, right? vCPU is just a term for like CPU core, right? I'll explain you CPU core as well, but basically you can say right now it's compute power and RAM, right? So I want decent compute power and I want decent RAM because I want to give a decent overview here, right? I'm trying to make a good computer basically. So let's say I go with the S2 V3, right? It's standard, right? You can read about these sizes. It's really good to read about it. When you're talking to a client, it would be easier. You will have a clearer mind. Not that the client would ask you which size you should get, but you will have a clearer idea. So it will make you more confident that you know what you're talking about. Uh, the S2 V3, and the next thing is username. What's username? Username would be when you're logging into a virtual machine or when you're logging into any computer per se, there is a username and there is a password that is involved in that case. Okay. What's the username? Username could be anything. Let's say, no, username could be your name. So in this example, I'm keeping student, right? Password is whatever I like would be the password. So you won't probably show anybody the password while you're creating the virtual machine, right? And password has to be at least 12 digits, right? Inbound ports. Now, this virtual machine is on the cloud, right? This virtual machine is on the cloud, and you have to access it through internet. Make sense, right? So this virtual machine has to have some ports open so that you can access this virtual machine. If all the ports are closed, this virtual machine will be there. This virtual machine will be running, but you will not be able to access it. You will not be able to open it and see what's going on there, right? So you need to open some ports so that you can see what's going on in this virtual machine. I'll show you how, right? Let's go with RDP in this case. RDP is, anybody knows what that is? Remote Desktop Protocol. RDP stands for Remote Desktop Protocol. If you guys have used TeamViewer or anything like that, it's Microsoft's equivalent of TeamViewer, right? You can see the screen, you can see the console of the virtual machine, by the way. Uh, so when you're talking to somebody, they might just say that, why should I go to a virtual machine in Azure? Why should I go to Windows Server 2019 and Azure if, by the way, if I have already have a license of Windows Server on premises? Don't you think that's an important thing to have, right? They're saying that, okay, I have an on-premises license of Windows Server 2016 or 2019 or 2012. Why would I go to a virtual machine in Azure? Then what will you say? Can that license be used on this virtual machine? Yes or no?
No.
Think about it. You guys understand the question?
Can be updated.
Okay, you don't understand the question. One second. Let's say you're talking to someone and that person is saying that, hey, I already have a data center, right? I already have Windows Server installed in that data center, okay? And I happen to have some activation keys with me, or I happen to have some licenses with me of Windows Server 2016. Then why should I move to cloud? And he's presenting a logical point, right? That why should he move to the cloud if he has like a Windows Server 2016 license? So he's asking you that whether he can use that license in Azure or not. What do you think? Can he or can he not? Yes. 1 minute. If you don't have a Windows Server 2016 license, now store that question somewhere. The one I asked you earlier. If I don't have a Windows Server 2016 license, can I make a virtual machine here? Yes. That's what I'm doing, dude. I don't have a license, right? I can create a Windows Server 2016, 2019, 2012 virtual machine here, right? And I will be charged on a monthly basis depending upon the usage I made for the virtual machine, right? I don't require a license. That would be monthly thing. But if I have a license, where will I apply the license here? I can't. Or can I? Is that making sense or is that not making sense? Ma'am, you're confused? Don't look at others. It's okay. You're confused? The thing is,
I want to ask, if I have the license, I cannot have machine VMs in on cloud.
that's what I'm asking you. That's the whole question that's going on. Give me a minute. Okay. So, ma'am, what we are saying is that Windows Server 2016, you have the 2016 license. I'm making a Windows Server 2016 machine. Is there any way to apply your license to this machine? The answer is no. By the way, the answer is no. You cannot apply this license directly to this machine. Number one. Okay. So, do you think your license is waste now? Technically, your license would be waste unless you see this. You see here, save money, right? This is called Azure hybrid benefit. Azure is saying that, dude, if you already have a license, if you already own a license, you can just apply your license here, not on the virtual machine. You can give that license back to us, and we are going to give you a discount on your virtual machine. Is that making sense? Now did my license go to waste? It's just like I'm trying to get a new phone from Amazon and I'm selling my old one to them only.
So if we like updates himself it onto this server onto Azure cloud. So like
If he already has an unused license, that's what I'm talking about.
like if he's taking this new subscription and his old license will be taken back, means he will not have any access to that old license.
Okay. Once you sell your phone to Amazon, can you use that phone?
No.
No.
No, like
Think about it.
no, like that license will be cancelled or what will happen with that license?
That's gone. Khatam wo license. Right. So the thing is, I'm talking about unused licenses, by the way, like you said. I'm talking about the unused license. Right. So it's like you are returning your phone to Amazon so that you can use the new one. Right. So you can use only one phone at a time. Either you use this virtual machine without a license, or you use your on-premises that license on the on-premises machine. So you can do one thing. Right. So do you already have a Windows Server license? Yes. But the thing is, depends that which phone you're returning would be the discount on your new phone, right? If you're returning a really old phone, your discount would be less. If you're returning maybe OnePlus 6T, your discounts would be better. No. right? There are a lot of conditions with this as well.
It would be easier to tell
Software
those people.
assurance applies.
Software assurance has to be there. If you don't have software assurance, then this does not work.
You cannot even return back your licenses.
Nope. Azure, you are not eligible for Azure hybrid benefit if you don't have a software assurance. Make sense? One more reason to buy software assurance. Okay. Review and create. I'm just reviewing and creating this virtual machine, so it will check whether all the things and all the credentials I've added here are valid or not, and then it will show me the tentative price of the virtual machine. It shows 6.34 rupees per hour. It's expensive, right? Or is it cheap? Who's saying it's expensive? It's a server, dude. It's a Windows server. How much does a Windows Server license cost? Windows Server 2016?
$1,000
Data center or standard?
standard.
Sure. How much is the data center?
No idea.
Even more. Right. Licenses are expensive, especially the server ones. They are very expensive. It will cost you around $1,000 per license, man. Right. So don't you think this machine is worth it with the hardware and the license? Right. It is. It is worth it. Okay. This is, and by the way, this is compute cost. This is not the cost of storage. Right. I'm not adding storage to this. This is just the cost while the virtual machine is running. That would be the cost for me. Okay. And I can just click on create on this virtual machine, right? And how long does it take for the virtual machine to, or how long does it take for you to install the operating system and start up the machine from scratch usually?
Maximum 1 hour.
Maximum 1 hour minimum. If you're having a really good day, maybe 20-25 minutes. Okay. Azure Virtual Machine will be created in 5 to 7 minutes approximately. 3 to 7, but usually it's 5 to 7. Okay. Depending upon the configuration of the virtual machine, by the way, right? It will depend upon the configuration of the virtual machine. So the thing is, just for examples like this, I've already created a couple of virtual machines because I didn't want to wait 5 to 7 minutes, right? So I've just created this virtual machine called as web server and this virtual machine called as delete VM. Now, delete has nothing to do with the resource group or anything. This does not mean delete. It's just a reminder for me so that I delete them because they keep on charging me the money. That's why it's called delete, by the way. Let's open this machine called as web server. I click on this and this will be the state of the virtual machine. Is this readable for everyone here? So status of the machine is stopped. That means I turned off the virtual machine. Okay. You can see my subscription. You can see the size of the virtual machine. That's D4SV3, which is like a really good machine. You can see it here. 4 CPUs and 16 gigabytes of memory. That's not bad at all, right? And Windows Server operating system, right? It does not show you the server operating system right now, but I'm telling you it's Windows Server 2019. Okay. So I'll start this machine probably. And by the way, till the time the virtual machine is not started, till the time the virtual machine is turned off, how much does it cost? Zero. It's a pay as you go model. If you're not using any kind of compute, then the cost of the virtual machine is zero. Virtual machine by itself is a compute component. You understand that? It's there for data processing. If I'm not processing data, if it's at zero, or if the virtual machine is turned off, there is not going to be any cost that's going to incur, right? So let's wait for the virtual machine to start, and it usually takes around somewhere less than a minute to start the virtual machine, right? It would be started by the time I refresh it. Is all this making sense so far? Is all this making sense? Which model am I working on? This is PaaS or SaaS? This is IaaS. We are creating a virtual machine. We are creating a server on which we are installing the operating system, on which we are going to install the application all by ourselves. This is infrastructure as a service. Okay, you were not here yesterday. It's okay. You were not here yesterday.
Like in infrastructure, I understood like in infrastructure as a service, we need to like put on the servers and everything.
Yes, that's what you're doing,
So, but it's all virtual, no?
dude.
Through using software and
When you're thinking infrastructure as a service, don't think that literally Microsoft is going to come to your company and bring a server that, hey, here is your server. This is infrastructure as a service. No. Infrastructure as service is that you get a virtual server. running somewhere else. They are giving you their infrastructure so that you don't have to have the infrastructure yourself. If I get the infrastructure, then how am I on the cloud? I'm not on the cloud, right? If I get the infrastructure literally in a hardware form, it doesn't make sense. So now the virtual machine state is running, okay, and I can click on connect here.
So,
Yes.
like we had created virtual machine. After that, we had even decided which type of operating system to be installed upon it.
Mm-hmm.
So we provided it with IES, and then there is a platform also which is being provided to them.
Dude, the thing is, if you have control over the infrastructure, that means you're getting infrastructure as a service. Obviously, if you have control over infrastructure, you will have control over infrastructure and platform and software. Obviously, they are built over one another, right? If you have control only over the application, right, you don't have the control over the whole platform, right? Anything underneath that would not work. Application is yours. That would mean that it's platform as service. Microsoft is providing you the platform. If you don't have control over anything, the software is something that you're using. You only have your control over the usage of the software, not even the software itself, usage of the software. That means it's software as service. Control over the whole machine from here.
Yes.
How many applications can I install on this machine? As many as I want.
One.
As many as I want. This is my machine. Don't think of application as anything special. Example of application could be Mozilla Firefox, VLC Media Player, Google Chrome. How many applications can I install like that on this machine? As many as I want, or as many as my hardware would permit me to do so. Okay, make sense? So basically, this is called infrastructure as a service. If I'm going with infrastructure as a service, that means I'm just getting a new computer. It's just like getting a new computer, right? Can I access this from anywhere else? What was the minimum requirement? I should rephrase it. What's the minimum requirement for me to access this machine? Internet, username and password. Internet and credentials. So can I access this virtual machine from my Android phone?
Yes.
Answer? Yes, no. You just said it should have like only the internet and the credentials and nothing else.
Yes.
Yes? How? Obviously, there's a way to do that, right? The thing is, I just need an internet connection and and the username and the password, right? So how will I do that? I will install something called as remote desktop protocol on my cell phone from Google Play Store, right? It will ask me for the IP address of this virtual machine. Obviously, I have to be connected to the internet. Then it will ask me for username and password, and I'll be able to connect it, right? Make sense? Okay. You guys want to see it? That's cool. So 1 minute. I hope I'm getting the internet here. So I should be able to. I'm going to this RD client. Okay. RD client plus remote desktop. Go to desktop. So that's something that I'm doing. 1 second. That's something that I'm doing. Okay. What's the IP address? Can somebody read the IP address for me? 137. 135. 126. That's a very long IP. Dot 56. Okay. Dot 56. And what's the username and ID? Student and password was whatever the password was, right? So by the way, I'll try to connect from my cell phone, right? What am I using? For what? Charge for this virtual machine? Yeah, right now I'm getting charged for this virtual machine per hour. I've already spent 6.5 rupees because I'm into first hour, right? So the thing is, should I be able to connect to this virtual machine, right? I definitely should be able to connect to this virtual machine from any device that is there, right? Oh, what, connection broke? No, I can access the virtual machine from here, right? So no matter where you are, no matter what kind of scenario that we are talking about, we can always access our machines from
We can access
any.
only like
For multiple access, we need something called as CAL.
Yes. That's what I was wondering. Without
Uh,
CAL, how?
Only one user, actually only two users at a time, right? But
at a time, but they should not impact.
I'll explain you later how that works in this virtual machine. But
With
it's
different username password, I could access it.
kind of,
Can I have multiple username password for to access one user, one server?
yeah, sure.
In that case, we could two users.
Not simultaneously.
Now it's getting confusing.
Why? That's why we shouldn't be having this discussion, right? I'm just showing that I can access it from anywhere. I'm not talking about simultaneous access right now. That's a different topic altogether, right? We need cal for that. Okay. Anyway, is that making sense? Anybody confused? Just let me know right now so that we can repeat this. It takes a little while to repeat. Okay. Sorry?
Showing 10 a.m. somewhere.
It was in the region that I had created this virtual machine. Probably. Right. Probably it's the region where I created my virtual machine. That's the time that it shows usually. Okay. So I hope this makes sense, right? So if I want to create a virtual machine, that's how I create a virtual machine. That's how I view a virtual machine. If I if I'm thinking about going towards platform as a service, then I'll have something else. This was the example of what? IaaS, PaaS or SaaS? IaaS, right? PaaS and SaaS after a break. That's cool. So let me stop this.